We've got a great set of matches for you guys tonight here at the SSL Classic. My name is Wolf. With me is Rapid. And we've got the full set of matches tonight, all 4 best of ones.
That is right, Wolf. We've got the return of Light. He hobbled in here on crutches a little bit ago. Just kidding, he doesn't have any crutches. But he does have a little bit of work to do since he did get a walkover forfeit yesterday. And it's not even just about his first game versus Sock. We're going to be having the game immediately following that, probably my favorite game of the night, as Rain takes on Sulky.
That's right. It's an old matchup in StarCraft 2 as well as Brood War, and these two guys, former teammates very briefly on SK Telecom T1 in StarCraft 2, of course. So know each other really well, know their play styles very well. So this could be a bit of a wonkier one going into our second match of the night. The TVT, though, is going to be my favorite. Sock's TVT is really good, and I want to see how well Light is feeling, how well, what his form is at since his recovery from his injury last week.
Yeah, Light kind of reminds me a lot of Mind's performance, that guy that you expect to be very good just based on his previous pedigree, but definitely does need to show up. And for Light, like I mentioned, wasn't here last week. Now that we are making our way to kind of the halfway point of our season, it's 7 weeks long. This is week number 3. This is kind of where, if you've had like a rough start to the season, you really do need to start turning your wins around.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And, he didn't walk in on crutches, but you could say that loss was a crutch for Light going into this one, because we've seen it already in SSL Premier. Alive taking that loss against Patience. It really does affect your record regardless of what form you're in when you miss a match in a round-robin system like this. At least luckily for these players that had other arrangements so they couldn't actually show up for their matches, at least they'll get knocked out. If you fail to show up for, say, a GSL group stage,
then you're just done.
Yeah, you just lose, and that's it. They still have the chance to tear through the tournament, but that match that Light missed against Sulky last week could have been one of the ones that he wins going forward, but we'll just never know. So he has to just focus on the future and going forward now.
Yeah, and so he's going to be focusing on his match tonight against Sock, a guy that, I didn't really know very well coming into things like the first few ASLs. Wasn't really a super outstanding player, but really for me it was the ASL team battle where Sock just really kind of stepped things up. And you can see him sitting here 1-1 in the middle of the pack. Sulky's 1-1 came off of a default win, so excited to see how that will affect us. And Light down at the bottom of the table, took a week off to recover last week, and now he's back and needs to climb up from the bottom of the standings.
Yeah, when you look at a ranking like this, you might be surprised that everyone is so close with all the ties. We're very early in, as you mentioned, only week 3 of 7. And also in Brood War, because these are best of ones, your wins are really your map score. So there's no best of 3 wins on top of map scores like you would see in StarCraft 2. So this will change very drastically going into today, and especially next week, as we're really going to have the big divide. But the key here is Light is the only player who hasn't taken A series. Perhaps he could have said we could have said the same about Sulky had Light played against Sulky and defeated him, but it was not the case.
No, not the case. And one thing that's definitely going to change this up is you'll be able to see right now are our maps. Last week it was Neo Medusa, Neo Medusa, Neo Medusa. We do see that map twice today, but we're also going to get a chance to check out Circuit Breaker. And I think one of my favorite new maps this season, Match Point, there at the end of the day. But here you can see our matchups on our screen. We already talked about the first 2. Final 2 of the night will be Hero versus Sock and Effort versus Free. I think I also said that Light was playing Sock. He's playing Mind. So just a minor correction there.
Yep. So the TVT to start things off, Sock will be playing Hero later on. But this is going to be an exciting set of matches. And the TVT is still the one I'm most excited for. You tricked my brain too. I was actually thinking it was Sock versus Light as well. But it will be Mind, of course, in fact, with our first best of one of the evening. And it's a shame, because I do want to see Sock's TVT. Not tonight.
Yeah, no, not tonight. But, of course, because there are 3 Terrans, we'll get a chance to see that a little bit later on. I haven't actually gotten a chance to cast any TVT yet so far in the SSL Classic. So we'll get a chance to talk and have a few long conversations. I could probably read the entire script of a B movie during the game today. And it might be one of those super fast TVTs where maybe one player gets his main dropped and can't clean it up and he just loses. Oh, no. But usually TVTs do shape up to be a little bit of a longer matchup. So should have a little bit of time to chill out. This is not going to be that Hero versus Effort 3-minute, 7-second game.
Yeah, definitely very unlikely, especially because Mind is in the booth, because he plays a longer game most of the time. He's more macro-oriented. His TVTs, he can be tricky, but here is a shot of him just now. He is 1-1, taking the win over Sulky in the TVZ, but losing to Rain in that PVT.
Yeah, and the loss to Rain was also really kind of interesting to me. Rain, really spectacular in that he showcased a bunch of different, very aggressive strats. In this situation, it was a forward gateway into a Zealot, rushing all the way up, and or I guess no, this one was the two Grace Carriers game that he won. So really, really cool to see his playstyle, and I think for me, Mind is one of my favorite, or my players' favorite to get out of this tournament and make it to the playoffs.
Well, Light is back. You can see here he was defeated by Rain. Light was the player who died to Rain's forward gateway and Zealot pressure, and then having the depth loss against Sulky. So we've really only seen the TVP matchup out of him. We'll see TVZ later, but the loss against Sulky really not indicative of his current record or form. So he's a bit of an underdog in this match, most would say, for sure, especially with his somewhat mixed results in the ASL in the past few seasons, but he's got a pretty large, I'd say, niche fan base because he's not one of the top players. He never was in Brood War back in the Star League days, back in the Kespa era, whereas Mind was much more known.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Mind, really, really sick win. I think 2007 was sort of the year of Mind when he was the smartest player out there. He was just crushing everybody. His Terran was God mode. We'll see who comes out on top as we get into our first matchup of the night. It's a TVT on Neo Medusa. Let's get into game. So good fan cheers, and as we do accept our allied vision, we can also hear the cheers on the crowd for our sponsor, Jin Air, our Terran player, well, both Terran players. This red Terran on the left-hand side of Neo Medusa is going to be, as they switch over the overlay.
Yeah, we haven't switched, so there's no way for us to know.
Okay. Yeah, also we don't have player cameras.
So, well, it's because they're waiting for the spawning locations to be confirmed. So
there
it looks like Mind is actually the green Terran based on what we saw in the Observer just a moment ago. But it is to be noted that we are going back to patch 1.16 for this tournament, as we did give the good old 1.18 a try last week, but it's time to stick with something a little bit more familiar going for the rest of this tournament.
That is very true, and here, of course, comes up our overlay with our super high-tech technology, which is a clock. Yes. So we do get a chance to time things out, but we will not be able to see supply here. Now, just going to be talking about exactly what we see here. The supply depot built up there on the high ground. I believe that is walling off to help wall off eventually, because the main and the natural on Neo Medusa are on the same level, so no high ground or low ground ramp.
That's right. Going to be seeing the barracks here coming out for Mind and his choke point, leaving the depot on the high ground, which will give him vision later on up there. Behind the mineral line, as we go into this Terran versus Terran, which is a matchup that, as you might expect, if you're a Brood War fan, will likely go down the big, long mech versus mech battle. There's a few skirmishes that can occur in the early game. What's been really popular in TVT in the recent times has been Wraith play, sneaking the Wraiths in your tech, even doing Wraith all-ins. We've seen 2 Starport Wraith in this matchup. And then kind of as the game gets longer, it's all these tech switches and then the air control with Wraiths, and then later switching into the Valkyries if you're behind. We've seen all sorts of crazy TVTs in the last year. So I'm imagining that we're probably going to be seeing, hopefully, at least into the mid-game, that mech play. I'm hoping nobody dies early, because, like you said, we haven't cast a TVT yet in this tournament. I'd like to see this one fleshed out.
Yeah, and so starting things off, sometimes you can go for heavier amounts of Marines early on, because it takes a while for your opponent to ramp up to a high number of siege tanks and vultures. So if you do just have a bunch of Marines, there's a chance you can just walk across the map with an early rush and put that pressure on. Now, very uncommon, and so right now, exactly what you can see, the factories coming up, should see the barracks lift up after a few more Marines come out. These are just used to maybe deny the SCVs, but turns out SCVs have a bunch of HP.
Yep. looks like he will be denied, though. We'll be able to eat 3 more shots. Ooh, the third one not going to hit, looks like. So gets away there. Good control and really good awareness by Light to save that SCB, as we see 2 factories coming up for Light on the side of Mind, though. We don't know what he's planted just yet. It's going to be the starport opener. So this is the kind of, I don't even really want to call it a triangle, but this is the way you could go around different builds. Just the 2-fact versus the starport, very different openings.
Yeah, this is sort of the spear, axe, and what's the other one? Lance, I guess? No, that's like the spear. Spear, axe, and sword. There we go. Haven't played enough Fire Emblem, but this is going to be really cool. And the starport coming up is going to signal either dropship coming out for early drops in the main, which are very effective, or possibly an early raid.
Well, this is going to be kind of funny. These Marines are going to come over here and harass a little bit. Vulture as well. So obviously you need to be careful. He doesn't have a bunker or anything like that to defend, and the wall makes it tough to actually defend at this spawning location because the Marines on the outside will have a better angle, because they just simply outrange the ones on the inside, and they can go back and hit the buildings when the Marines can't.
Oh, wow.
Look at that Vulture positioning as well. Ooh, he pulled his gas SCVs. It's gas, not mind right now. Oh. And it hits the Vulture first, the second Vulture. This is disastrous, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. He's actually going to have to repair his own Vulture and use that economy.
The wall's going to go down, and he's just going to try to force his way through here.
He might actually even be supply blocked here. It's going to be 2 Vultures versus 2 and 3 Marines as if he's trying to get in there, but nice control there by Light.
Hey, one more shot to do it on that Vulture, so he will eventually get taken out. But this is an incredibly good trade for Mind. You know, he decides to cancel his control tower, decides he doesn't need Cloak anymore with how much damage that did.
Right.
As you very astutely pointed out, he took the first Vulture shot, so he had to repair with his SCVs on the Vulture. He was just going to straight die, which caused him to lose his supply depot, which meant the units could stream in. That also is going to supply block him and ruin his build.
Man, really losing your supply depot early on is such a hit to your build. It throws off all of your timings, and it's especially going to throw Light off against what he has coming his way, Mind, with his first Wraith already out on the map.
Though it is important to point out that Light did kind of blind open with the armory, so we'll have Goliath production available to him. So he may just simply have the answer to this by default, but this is going to be the first Wraith, is going to be annoying no matter what. He's not going to have an answer for it immediately here. We'll see how many SCVs he could stop mining.
And because it's mech coming up on the way, there's no missile turrets, so those will not be the option. It's going to be up to these first few Goliaths, and when you're going into mech TVT, you don't really want a high number of Goliaths. You mostly just want Vultures and tanks.
Let's see how much he commits to. He didn't get a single SCV kill, and he didn't really force many off the line. The Goliath came out just before the Wraith could really start hammering away. It looks like he's going to make perhaps just one more, but the production of Wraiths has completely stopped for Mind. He canceled the control towers you mentioned earlier, and he's now just got this lead in army. He also has the faster CC out here outside, and he can use this Wraith to spot this push coming across the map, any pressure coming his way. Loving his position right now.
And in case you guys are wondering, I mean, this Wraith is primarily for scouting, because that happens. And that's actually pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's actually really bad. So Wraith's great for scouting, not great for killing stuff on the ground. In fact, it might seem like, oh, Wraiths must be really good because, Vultures and tanks can't shoot up. Well, they deal basically no damage to ground units. So it's bad when you expect that to deal damage, and it's also bad when you lose it, having invested so much in that starport early on.
He made several more Goliaths too, and he got a fast academy. He was perhaps afraid of Cloak, but this is kind of an issue because now Mind has his CC up. He has a better tech because, like you said, you don't really want that many Goliaths, especially in the early game, and now he has map control here with these siege tanks, and there's just not much of a way for Light to sneak around. It looks like he's trying to with these Vultures, but no openings so far.
Well, this is really interesting. We were talking about how, you lost the Wraith that's, suboptimal, but having forced out quite a few Goliaths from Light might have actually been a little bit of an additional benefit, because, tanks are just going to walk up and kill that. So, especially having this extra economy from having another base up, Mine's just in a great spot.
Well, finally, we see Light switching back into siege tanks here. The production got his second machine shop down. And
this might as well be like a hallucinated Phoenix. It's just like flying over. Nobody actually cares about it, but it is going to let him know that there is no expansion on the way for Light.
That's all he needs to know. He also saw that there are 2 machine shops, so it's double tank production. So maybe he's now thinking, okay, he's probably going to try to hit me with a timing push. There's an SCV there that, is trying to say, hey, look, I might CC, you never know, but I think it's pretty obvious right now to Mind that there's an attack coming, but it's mostly Goliaths, as you mentioned. He already has the siege tank siege up, There is a barracks here for vision, but the Wraith can provide the same. As long as he doesn't lose it, he should always have the advantage in terms of the siege up. As you can see here, he will get the first shot. Unfortunately, he's outnumbered 3-1 there, so it will get taken out, but
yeah,
he's still just slowing this down, which is all he needs to do because he has the better economy. And look at this, sieging aggressively forward once more, even taking the air control away with this Wraith, scanning. And he's just going to maintain control of this location. And as you can see, Light concedes the point, he backs off and he starts to CC, but that's going to be so far behind.
Yeah, and I really kind of question that. I felt like maybe there was an opportunity there to just go really hard on a rush and maybe punish Mind for investing so much into getting that second base up, but such is not the case. However, so there's 10 stacked Protoss Temples there. If you kill them with splash damage, it hits all of them at the same time. You can break through and maybe look for a flank because that does allow a backdoor into the main.
That's right, and then those siege tanks to get on the high ground and take a better angle. So this is a rare situation for siege tanks to hit this, but in TVT, in a situation like this, it's actually going to be quite useful. So good resourcefulness here by Light to use the map. And obviously he has to manually target the siege tanks onto that, but he's careful about doing so because I don't want to get hit while he's making that move. Okay, does knock them down, so he has this backdoor angle. He's got an SCV here as well to mine those minerals away.
Yeah, in general, you don't want to try to get siege tanks up a super tiny choke. They function a lot like Dragoons in that they don't work very well when you try to cram a bunch of them up a ramp. So, you know, he might opt into that, but you don't really see Light sieging, unsieging, crawling forward with his tanks just yet. And that's just because I don't think he has quite as many as Mind does, whose reinforcement distance is much shorter.
Okay, he's going to try to take an angle over here with the Goliaths to pick one off. Ooh. Nicely done. And the cooldown there just gets the shots off.
Yeah, that's why +1 vehicle weapons is so important. Allows you to two-shot a tank instead of leaving it with just those 12 HP left. So very, very important. And we do now see Light doing exactly what I just said he wasn't. So great caster curse there. Continuing to try to get better angles on Mind.
Another Wraith comes out here, though, to push this barracks back, which is a big issue for Light. He's just not able to maintain vision, as we do see a big sneak by here in the middle of the map. Oh, actually, it was just a spider mine. Oh my god.
Nikes, that was very close.
Nikes indeed.
It was very close to killing the tank and very close to me losing my job. So we're skirting around the edges of appropriate commentary.
That we are, but you know what? I mean, I think that was a Schneike moment for sure. Rapid.
God bless John Madden out there for saving my life.
Look, all I'm saying is that one vulture that could sneaks around and gets spider mines up to actually catch reinforcements. It's a very tricky maneuver, and it just barely works out in his favor. With the Wraith, he maintained vision control of the high ground for longer. He's had better production for longer because he had this CC up longer, and he also got some extra vultures with the factories he built. So he's maintained siege tank production while also having these extra vultures, which is why he has these spider mines out, which is why he's able to make this happen.
And this might be just like that little extra oomph that puts Mind into a position where he can work on crushing this force out in the middle of the map. He's snuck out with a couple of vultures, and here comes a drop. Okay,
so he just has all this extra money to put resources into moves like this. And the fact that this contain hasn't really hit him hard yet is... I mean, it just shows that how far ahead he is. I mean, Light has moved across the map, but he's never been able to push any further. Yes, it looks like he has control of the map, he has his chokehold, but he's not pressuring anything super valuable or critical right now for Mind, so Mind's not too worried about it. When we get to the third base situation, that's when things change. But look, this is going to hit the natural with vultures, and he has this high ground drop with siege tanks.
Yeah, the siege from on high. This is just not going to be able to be dealt with very easily. And if you try to come up the ramp, there's already spider mines right there. Oh my god, this is going to be such a difficult position to deal with.
Vultures do finally get cleaned up with the natural after getting a few kills, but yeah, the spider mines you just mentioned are going to make this a dangerous position. Oh, this may just be too much damage, man.
Vultures cleaned up? Yeah, I mean, with mines planted, it's going to be difficult to get forces over there. You're going to have to try to kill these vultures off with siege tanks, and in the meantime, mines expanding.
Gets that third base up.
Oh, no.
Okay, he needs to either realize that there are mines up there or just blind scan. He's going to be in trouble if he does not.
Oh, no.
Okay, siege tank finally cleared here. So
Yikes.
Luckily those mines won't really come into play. More drops coming around, though. He has full control over this zone.
Yeah, he's just going to keep ferrying more units in. I thought he might do some things like vulture bombs, which are kind of like zealot bombs, but more expensive and less effective, to try to help clear out that force in the middle. But I think Mind's just totally okay with leaving that stalemate there. Right as I say that, he's coming in to break it.
I'm just going to try to tank some of these shots with the vultures, it looks like. does get him 2 siege tanks, and here comes the big drop. He just has almost twice as much stuff as Light does because he's been mining for longer. He's been taking better trades all game long. And this base is no longer mining, so it's going to be 3 CC against basically 1 mining in a moment here.
And as soon as he kills off that depot on the high ground, you won't even be able to see those siege tanks, much less, God, I can't talk, deal with them as easily as he was able to be before.
Sure, I mean, he can scan or he can fire when they're firing, but you're always going to have a nasty disadvantage the entire time you're trying to make this work. Here's the transfer of SCVs over to the third base. There's nothing to set that up. Look at how much weaker the middle of the map setup looks now for Light as well, because he's been forced to deal with this pressure. He's not rallying as many units to the middle of the map while he's losing trades there. This game feels nearly over.
Yeah, and even if Light was the much superior player, I mean, this is like me racing against Usain Bolt, but he has to like crawl while I get to run. I'm like, okay, well maybe you're better, but I'm still just way too far ahead. And there it is, the GG comes out mined, taking out Light.
Very well-played defense there of that push coming across the map. His pressure in the early game in both the Marine Vulture and also the Wraith really threw Light off in the early game. Light committed so much to the Goliaths, which took away the map control. He couldn't take a CC, couldn't expand, and that's basically all she wrote from there. Obviously, the Broodor has a lot of comeback mechanics and et cetera. So, I mean, yes, there were opportunities for him to come back in that game, but basically, as you said, Mine didn't make any mistakes. He is the better player, and he just controlled that space outside of his natural, while then eventually using the extra resources he had to make drop ships, to put vultures inside, to put the siege tanks in there. Then we saw Light unable to stream units across the middle of the map where he was trying to put up that soft contain because he had to give those resources to defend. Never took a third base, then couldn't mine from both his main or his natural consistently, and that was it.
Indeed it was, and that'll do it for our first game of the night. Coming up, we have my favorite match of tonight as our 2 StarCraft 2 Pro players return to Brood War to play off against each other as Rain takes on Sulky, both very accomplished players in both games, and now they're coming back to face off against each other as the SSL Classic continues here in just a little bit, which would have been a perfect outro if the Korean casters had finished talking.
They had not finished talking. They had a lot more to say about that one, I suppose. Got Firebat Hero.
Yeah, I was going to say, Firebat Hero is one of our Korean casters, so he probably quite wordy about his TVTs.
Well, he won a famous TVT, not for the game itself, but for what he did on the beach after he won it.
Yeah, I guess he is always well known for his ceremonies. I wonder if he does those when he casts. I don't really look to my right all that often to figure it out.
I haven't been looking too much. I've heard he's generally pretty calm. He's an analyst now. He definitely doesn't he doesn't rip his shirt off and run down the casting desk and dance around like this. So I feel like he's calmed down quite a bit. But guys, we are finally going to run to that commercial break. It's just a short, about 2-minute long break before we go to our next matchup between Rain and Sulky. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Tonight will change our lives. It's so